Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another moto vlog, and I've had the Triumph for almost a year now, so I thought it would be a good time to kind of have a year in review about the bike. And I wanted to split it up into a couple videos so I could focus on a couple areas of the bike rather than try and cram it all in one big video. So this video is going to be my top 5 fails or my least favorite things about the Triumph. And then after this I'll go into another video which will be my top 5 favorite things about the Triumph. So that'll be in the next video, so this will be a negative video. Also note, I have a new camera set up for the moto vlogs. I got a Hero 5 session and a new mic set up, so hopefully the view is a little bit better, the video is a little bit more crispy, and hopefully it's less shaky. This camera has image stabilization. Now let's get started with my least favorite parts about owning this bike. And as a note before I dive into this video has been really hard to make. I really love this motorcycle. This is probably one of my most favorite pieces of machinery or toys I have ever purchased. So this list is full of me just nitpicking, but I wanted to do this because I did want to share a couple things I've discovered while owning this bike that I would want to pass along to any potential owner. So without further ado, let's dive into this. My first fail, or one of my least favorite things about this motorcycle, is the turning radius. Out of all the bikes I've owned, the turning radius has got to be the worst on this. There are a lot of sharp turns that I've taken in the past with all my other bikes, and I can pretty much make it no problem, but for me, this bike, the turning radius it's atrocious. There's no way to get away from that. So if you are a stickler for that sort of thing, just something to keep in mind. You can certainly ride around it, but just don't expect it to be as nimble as, let's say that FZ09 over there. Perfect timing. The FZ09 has to be one of the best bikes when it comes to like low speed maneuverability and turning radius. I could basically maneuver that thing around like my Supermoto. In this, I have to maneuver around, you guessed it, like a sport bike. So it's just something to keep in mind. The second fail for me, and this might be a surprise to some people, is the matte paint. The matte paint looks cool, but that's where it kind of stops for me. This matte paint is really soft. It's not like some of the automotive matte paints that are on, Mercedes or BMWs. I've gotten scratches in this paint way easier than any other vehicle I've ever owned. I don't know what it is about this paint, but it seems very soft. I had a small piece of debris, I guess, on my riding jeans one day, and it actually caused a fair amount of scratching on the gas tank. You can't see it. It's covered up with a tank guard or a tank pad, but still, I just can't believe it. And I'm a fairly meticulous owner, I'll be the first to admit it, and I take extra care washing it, but man, this paint is just weak. And that's kind of, I think, a trend too with cars like my Toyota 86. The paint is just paper thin, and I know it's water based, so it's just not as good as the old paint. There's no denying that. So in caring for the matte paint, it's not as easy. You have to use special washes, you can't use quick detailers. So if you're not interested in babysitting the paint, or you can't garage it, I really can't recommend the matte paint. In some ways I wish I had gotten the black, but I don't like black cars or black motorcycles really. So I've had, my old DRZ was black, it wasn't my favorite. It shows fingerprints, but it'd be easier than this because at least you can polish it, and you can get rid of some of the scratches. But it is what it is. The silver does look really good, so if it didn't look as good, I probably wouldn't be as stoked, but it really does look gorgeous. So that part's nice, and that makes it worth it. Now, the next thing, this is also nitpicky, like I said, most of this list is, but the lack of LED lights and no heated grips and no cruise control is kind of weird to me. I can see that they're rolling it out on, and they being Triumph is rolling it out on all of the other RS models that are coming out, like the Speed Triple RS and, you know, even the Tiger. I don't think the Tiger has an RS designation, but their top of the line Tiger also has, you know, heated grips and cruise control. It's not deal breakers, but for as much as this bike cost, it would have been nice. Same goes for the LED turn signals. Like, come on, guys. You know, it's a really expensive bike. I really shouldn't have to spend money on those, you know, in the aftermarket, especially when you gave it LED turn signals everywhere else in the world. And if I had to guess, that's probably because of the DOT. They're probably not DOT approved. But still, it's kind of weird to me. If I was Triumph, I would be putting them on the bike. It just adds a little bit more value. Well, to me, it adds a lot more value for basically, you know, probably no real cost to them. So that's where I'm a little confused. The heated grips and the cruise control, on the other hand, I can understand that costs more. And, you know, same with integrating an IMU. The fact that this doesn't have cornering ABS isn't the end of the world. Would it be nice? Absolutely. But it's nice just having regular ABS on the street. You know, this is where things can happen. The fourth thing on my list is going to be the fuel range, or, you know, how far you can get on a tank of gas. This gas gauge is weird. Like right now, it shows that I have about 1/8 of a tank. I know if I go fill this up right now, I will probably not fill more than 3.2 gallons. Supposedly this tank is like almost 5 gallons. I have never once filled more than, say, maybe 3.5 gallons. So I definitely do not believe it. The gas gauge is, well, it has a mind of its own. When I fill it up and I have the bike sitting upright, it will only show full for maybe half a mile before it goes to 7/8 of a tank. So I don't know what's going on there. I've talked to other Triumph owners. They've all said that, yeah, their gas gauge is kind of weird. I've asked the dealer about, you know, is there a recalibration process for the float inside or however it works? And the answer's been no. So I think it's just how it is. Knock on wood, I haven't run out of gas yet like I used to do all the time on my Supermoto. I really wish the tank was, you know, closer to 4 gallons in total capacity, and maybe I'm just not draining it enough and I'm not being brave enough going past 0, because right now it'll show we have 5 miles to go with 1/8 of a tank. I don't quite believe that. Maybe I just need to go on the road one day and see when it runs out. That would probably make for a pretty funny video, actually, so maybe I will go do that. But yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. I mean, it's totally adequate for what I do. I don't mind having to fill up, say, every 100, 120 miles when I'm on the road. It's a good excuse to stretch my legs, and I'm just not interested in going that far slogging across, you know, pavement or roads. I like enjoying myself, so it's not a huge deal. And the last thing on my list, the tires. This isn't going to be a problem for everybody. It's not a problem in San Diego. It's crystal clear today, and it's crystal clear most days here, and we don't really get rain, so the Super Courses can work here, but I'm not a fan of how much heat they need to work well in the, you know, on a mountain road. These really belong in a racetrack, so if you're actually going to the track regularly with this bike, these tires make complete sense, and you don't need to swap them. And if you're buying the R or the S model, they come with street tires anyways, or more road-oriented tires. So it's not really a big deal, and I'm planning on replacing these pretty soon with a set of Dunlop Q3 Pluses. But, you know, if you're getting the RS because you want it, like I did, and you do a lot of road riding, you'll probably find yourself wanting to swap these tires out unless you ride like a maniac on the road. And I certainly don't, and I have not really been able to get these guys up to proper operating temperature. I mean, I found out that they want to be about 130 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that is completely accurate, but that's fairly warm for a tire. You know, especially riding on the road, you'd have to be riding them pretty hard. So it's doable on a hot summer day, but, you know, even in the mountains when it's 55, 60 degrees here, these tires really don't warm up because the pavement up there isn't that warm. So it's just a little bit more challenging. And like I said, I'm really just nitpicking this bike. It was a struggle to come up with 5 things that I didn't like, because I genuinely love this thing. It's probably my favorite motorcycle I've ever owned. It can do everything well. It's kind of like a blend of everything I've ever owned. And if you've watched some of my other videos and heard me talk about my motorcycle history, it kind of makes sense. But yeah, so that's it. The next video about this bike will be my favorite things, and that'll be a lot of fun too. And after that, I will have a big year in review video that's kind of a compilation of everything. So stay tuned for that. And I'll have some more car content soon as well this summer. Lots of autocrosses planned. Just found out that it looks like we're not losing the autocross site in San Diego, which is a huge deal. So I will be able to continue having that fun right in my backyard. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And until the next time, I'm Sean with a driver's perspective.